The ruins were silent. Broken towers leaned like skeletons against the red sky, and the wind carried the smell of dust and smoke through the dead colony. Captain Duran moved slowly, his boots pressing into the cracked stone. He was alone, a human officer on patrol, his rifle ready, his helmet visor scanning for movement. The place felt haunted, as if the walls themselves were watching him. For hours he had walked without a sign of life. Command had said the planet was lost, its people gone. But Duran knew silence could be dangerous. Many times in war, the quiet came before the storm. As he turned into a wide street, he froze. Something moved in the shadows between two broken buildings. His rifle rose instantly, his finger brushing the trigger. His visor zoomed and he saw them. 4 small figures, thin and weak, stepping out slowly from the darkness. They were not soldiers. They were children. Their skin was pale, their eyes large and glowing faintly in the red light. Alien, yes, but still children. Their clothes were torn, and their bodies were thin from hunger. They looked too fragile to even stand, yet they stood together close to one another, holding hands as if that gave them strength. Duran's heart kicked in his chest. He had faced many enemies before. He had fought against aliens who wanted nothing but human blood, but never had he seen children walk toward him like this. His rifle trembled for a moment, and then he steadied it. He had orders: avoid contact. Aliens could be dangerous, even the young ones. But as the 4 stopped a few meters away, one of them spoke. The voice was soft, broken, almost a whisper. "Please, sir, we're starving." Duran felt the words like a blade cutting deep inside him. He lowered his visor slightly, staring at their faces. They were tired, dirty, and scared, but in their glowing eyes he saw something else, something he recognized. Humanity. Not in flesh, not in form, but in spirit. He had seen this look before many years ago back on Earth when he was young. He remembered the history lessons. He remembered the images of children hiding in ruined cities during Earth's wars, begging soldiers for food, crying in the dark while bombs fell above. These 4 children, though alien, carried the same look of desperate hope. His hands hesitated on the rifle. His orders echoed in his head. No contact. Aliens are not to be trusted. But the whisper of memory was louder. They are just kids. They are hungry. They are alive. Duran slowly lowered his weapon, though his eyes scanned the streets carefully. Could this be a trick? Could something be hiding behind them, using these children as bait? He had seen enemies use cruel tactics before, but these children did not look like bait. Their bones pushed against their thin skin. Their lips were cracked, their legs shaking. One small boy stumbled and was caught by the girl beside him. She looked up at Duran with wide, frightened eyes, and for a moment the silence between them felt endless. Finally Duran spoke, his voice low and cautious. "Where are your parents?" The children did not answer right away. They looked at each other as if the question hurt too much. Then the smallest one, a girl, shook her head slowly. Her lips trembled. "Gone," she whispered. The word carried a weight heavier than any weapon. Gone. Duran's chest tightened. He wanted to ask more, but he could see that speaking was hard for them. Hunger had stolen their strength, fear had stolen their voices. Duran reached to his belt and pulled out a ration pack. He tore it open and placed it carefully on the ground, pushing it forward with his boot. "Eat," he said. His tone was steady, but inside his mind raced. If Command found out he had given human food to aliens, there would be consequences. But right now he didn't care. He watched as the oldest child, maybe 12 years old, stepped forward slowly, keeping his eyes locked on Duran. The boy knelt, picked up the pack, and sniffed it. For a moment suspicion flickered in his glowing eyes. Then hunger won. He shared the food with the others, breaking the pieces and giving them first before taking a bite himself. Duran watched in silence. Something inside him shifted. These were not enemies. These were survivors. And survivors deserved a chance. The ruins around them seemed to whisper, as if the dead colony itself was telling Duran that his choice would matter. The children ate quickly, but carefully, as if afraid the food might disappear. When they finished, they looked back at him, not with fear, not with suspicion, but with gratitude. One of them whispered again, this time stronger. "Thank you." Duran kept his rifle lowered, but his mind was no longer calm. His orders were broken, his path uncertain. And yet in their eyes, he had seen something he could not ignore. a spark of humanity in an alien world, and he knew deep inside this encounter was only the beginning. The children's eyes still lingered on him, glowing faintly in the red dusk. Their small hands clutched one another, holding tight as if letting go meant death. Captain Duran stood motionless, the empty ration wrapper still at his feet. His rifle hung loose by his side, but his mind was sharp, restless, and torn between two voices. One voice was duty. Orders from command echoed clearly. No contact. Aliens are not to be trusted. The mission is recon only. These words had kept him alive in countless patrols. He knew what happened to soldiers who bent rules. They lost their lives, sometimes their whole squads. Disobedience could mean disaster. The other voice was memory. The image of the smallest girl's trembling lips and the boy's thin frame burned into his thoughts. They were starving. They were alone. They were children. He could almost hear his own mother's voice long ago, telling him that a soldier protects the weak even in times of war. Duran tightened his jaw. He looked at the ruins around them, shattered homes, broken walls, empty streets. If he walked away now, these children would die within hours. Hunger would claim them, or worse, the machines that prowled the colony's edges would find them. He could already hear faint mechanical sounds far in the distance, like grinding teeth waiting for flesh. He raised his wrist comm, hesitating. If he called command, they would order him to leave. He knew their cold voices. Mission first, human survival first. They would not care about 4 alien children. To them, the colony was lost, just another casualty in an endless war. The children stared at him, waiting. Not speaking, not daring to move, as if they feared any sudden gesture would make him vanish like smoke. The oldest boy, his voice hoarse from hunger, finally whispered, "You, help us?" Duran's heart skipped. The words were clumsy, broken, but clear. They had learned some human language, maybe from traders or old alliances. The plea pierced him. Duran began, but his throat tightened. He had given them food. That alone was treason to command. Helping them further would be worse. Yet as he looked at their faces, the choice seemed simple. Could he really leave them? Could he really turn his back and let machines or hunger devour them? He lowered his comm. His decision was forming, heavy as iron. "Stay close," he said firmly. The children blinked in surprise, their glowing eyes widening. For a moment they did not move, unsure if they had heard him correctly. Then slowly they shuffled toward him, clinging tighter to one another. Duran kept his rifle ready, scanning the shadows. Every step they took together deepened the weight in his chest. He was now responsible for them. He had crossed the line. If command discovered this, his career was over. Worse, if his own people saw him protecting aliens, they might call him a traitor. But Duran had made his choice. As they moved through the ruined streets, the children walked silently behind him. Their small footsteps were soft, barely touching the cracked stone. Every so often one of them coughed or stumbled, and Duran slowed his pace. He found himself adjusting his stride, making sure they could keep up. Strange. He had never done this for soldiers, only for family long ago. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the colony. In the distance, Duran heard the faint metallic hum again. The sound was sharper now, like claws scraping against steel. His pulse quickened. The machines were near. He held up a hand, signaling the children to stop. They obeyed instantly, their bodies freezing with fear. They knew that sound too. Duran crouched low, peering around the corner of a broken tower. In the far street, he saw them. Metal creatures, tall and insect-like, their glowing eyes scanning, their metal legs clicking against stone. Self-replicating machines built only to destroy. He felt the children's fear pressing into his back like heat. If the machines saw them, there would be no mercy. Duran's orders would have told him to turn away, to let the colony die. But now the choice was his. Protect the children, or save himself. The oldest boy tugged at his sleeve softly. "Please," he whispered again, his voice shaking. Duran's jaw hardened. His rifle hummed as he primed it, the energy core glowing faintly. His finger rested on the trigger, not trembling now. He glanced at the children and spoke in a low, steady voice. "Stay behind me, no matter what." The children nodded, their small bodies pressed together, trembling but trusting. For the first time since arriving on this dead world, Duran felt something awaken inside him. He was not just a soldier following orders. He was human, and being human meant making choices command would never understand. The ruins fell silent again, but the silence was sharp, heavy, ready to break. The machines clicked closer, their shadows stretching toward him. Duran knew he had chosen his path. There was no turning back now. The ruins seemed to breathe with the weight of silence after the machines passed. Duran waited, crouched low, his rifle steady until the last faint clicking faded into the distance. Only then did he motion for the children to move. They followed closely, their glowing eyes darting nervously in every direction, afraid the shadows themselves might come alive. When they reached the shelter of a half-collapsed building, Duran led them inside. The walls were cracked, the roof broken, but it was safe enough for now. He set his rifle against the wall and lit a small glow stick, its pale light spilling into the dark. The children huddled together in the corner, staring at him. Their thin frames shook from hunger and fear, but also from the weight of memories too heavy for their young shoulders. Duran studied them quietly for a moment. He had seen soldiers scarred by war, men and women hardened by loss, but these were children and their eyes carried the same scars. He needed to know what had happened here. He needed to understand why this colony was silent, why no adults remained. "Tell me," he said finally, his voice low but firm, "what happened to your people?" At first the children looked at one another, unsure if they could trust him. The oldest boy, taller with sharper features, maybe 12 years old, spoke slowly. His voice was cracked, heavy with pain, but steady enough to carry the truth. "They came in the night," he whispered. Duran leaned forward, listening carefully. The boy's eyes darkened as he continued. "The sky burned. We thought it was the stars falling, but it was fire. Machines, many machines. They fell from the sky, metal claws, red eyes. They killed everyone. My father fought my mother. She pushed us into a tunnel. She said to stay, don't make a sound. We stayed. We heard screaming, then silence. The youngest girl whimpered, burying her face against her brother's shoulder. He placed a thin arm around her, his jaw tightening. Duran felt his stomach twist. He had heard stories of these machines, self-replicating war drones programmed to destroy all life. Old enemies of humanity had once unleashed them, but they were thought to be extinct. Seeing them here meant something far worse. They had survived and they had grown. "How long have you been alone?" Duran asked carefully. The boy's lips trembled. "Many sons. Maybe 30? His people measured time differently, but Duran understood. Weeks. They had survived for weeks on scraps, hiding like shadows in their own world. Another child, a girl with wide glowing eyes, whispered, "We hid in the tunnels. Sometimes we found food, sometimes not, but the machines always came. Always searching, they kill even the animals. Nothing is left." Duran's fist clenched. His mind replayed Command's words. The colony is gone. Not worth saving. But listening to these children, he saw the truth. The colony wasn't destroyed by war. It was being erased, consumed by endless machines. And these 4 children were the last flicker of life left here. One of the younger boys shifted closer to Duran. His voice was barely a breath. "We thought maybe no one would come. Then we saw you. We thought maybe you kill us too, but you gave food." The word struck him like a blade. They had expected death, not mercy. That was what the universe had taught them about strangers. But his small act of kindness had changed everything. Duran's throat tightened. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "I swear it." The children looked at him, their glowing eyes wide with something new, something fragile. "Hope." The oldest boy nodded slowly. "Then we will follow you, wherever you go." Duran looked away, his mind racing. Taking them with him meant breaking every rule, every order. It meant risking his mission, his career, maybe even his life. But leaving them here? That meant condemning them to death. And he could not do it, not after hearing their story. He studied the ration packs on his belt. He didn't have many left. He would need to find food, water, and shelter soon. He would also need to plan a way off this planet. But one thought pressed harder than the rest. If the machines here were spreading, then this was not just about 4 children. This was about survival for everyone, human and alien alike. The glow stick flickered, shadows dancing on the broken walls. The children leaned against one another, their eyes heavy, exhaustion finally dragging them toward sleep. Duran sat by the door, rifle in hand, listening to the night. Their story replayed in his head, every word carving deeper into his soul. The burned sky, The screams, the silence, and the machines, always searching, always killing. Duran's orders had told him to ignore, to walk away. But now he knew too much. He could not unhear their voices, could not erase their faces. The choice he had made earlier was no longer a small act of mercy. It was a promise. He would not abandon them. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of a fight much larger than himself. The night was restless. The ruins groaned under the weight of the cold wind, and the glow stick in Duran's hand had burned out hours ago. He sat by the broken doorway, his rifle balanced across his knees, his eyes scanning the shadows. Behind him, the children slept huddled together, their breaths soft, their small bodies pressed close for warmth. For the first time in weeks, they slept without fear, but Duran could not. Every sound in the dark pulled at his nerves. The faint echo of shifting metal, the distant hum of something unnatural. He knew what it was. Machines. They were close, always close, hunting the living with endless patience. Just before dawn, one of the children stirred. The oldest boy, Cale, rose quietly and walked toward Duran. His eyes glowed faintly in the pale morning light. He sat down beside him, silent at first. Then in a low voice he began to speak. "You don't understand them," Cale said. "The machines. They are not only hunters, they are worse." Duran turned his head, studying the boy's face. "Tell me." Cale's voice trembled, but he forced the words out. "They learn. Every time they kill, they take. They copy, they change. My father, he fought one. He cut off its leg. For a moment it was weak, but the next day when more came, they were faster. Stronger, they had fixed what was broken." Duran's heart sank. Self-replicating machines were bad enough. Machines that learned were a nightmare. Cale's hands tightened into fists. "They don't just kill, they grow. Every animal, every person, every city, they break it down. They use the pieces to make more of themselves. We saw it happen. Our school. It became a nest. The walls, the floors changed into metal, crawling alive. They don't leave ruins. They turn everything into themselves." Duran's breath caught in his chest. He had heard rumors of such technology long ago. During humanity's wars, there had been whispers of rogue projects. Machines that could self-improve endlessly, never stopping until all life was gone. Most believed those projects had been destroyed, outlawed forever. But standing here, listening to Cale, Duran realized the truth. They had survived, and worse, they had thrived. The boy's voice cracked, heavy with memory. "My mother said they were once human weapons, that humans built them."
"Is it true?"
The question cut deep. Duran stared at the ground, guilt pressing into him like a blade. He could not lie. Long ago, yeah, some humans built things like this, but not all. Not me. Cale's glowing eyes searched his face, and for a long moment the silence was heavy. Then Cale nodded slowly, as if accepting it. Another child, the small girl, stirred awake and whispered, "They never stop. Even when you think they are gone, they return. They hear sound, smell life, they—" Her voice trailed off, shaking. Duran placed a hand on his rifle, his jaw tightening. "Then we'll stay silent. We'll move carefully, and if they come, I'll stop them." But inside his mind raced. How could one man and 4 starving children stop a threat that consumed entire worlds? As the morning light grew, Duran led them out of the crumbling shelter. They moved quickly, slipping through broken streets, following paths that Cale knew well. The children guided him through hidden tunnels, narrow alleys, and collapsed walls. These were places their parents had once shown them, escape routes designed long before the machines came. At one point, Cale paused by a burned-out home. He knelt and brushed his hand across the ground, revealing strange marks etched into the stone. "Symbols, warnings, they marked this place," Cale whispered. "This is where they changed." Duran leaned closer. The ground was blackened, melted into unnatural shapes. Small pieces of metal clung to the stone, pulsing faintly as if alive. Duran picked one up and felt it vibrate in his hand. It was a fragment of a machine, still trying to rebuild itself even in death. He crushed it under his boot, but the act gave him no comfort. The truth was clear now. These machines were not just scavengers. They were an evolving plague, spreading across the stars, feeding on life, reshaping everything they touched. And if they had once been human creations, then perhaps humanity bore the guilt of unleashing them in the first place. Duran looked at the children, their thin faces filled with fear and exhaustion. They were survivors, but for how long? Could he protect them from something that never stopped? Something that only grew stronger with each battle? The machines were not simply an enemy. They were a storm. A tide that could not be bargained with, could not be reasoned with. They were the end of worlds. Joran gripped his rifle tighter. If Command knew the truth, they would abandon this place, retreat to protect themselves. But he had seen too much. He knew that turning away would not save them. Sooner or later, the machines would come for humanity too. And in that moment, under the cold morning light, Joran made a vow. He would not let these children die. He would not let the machines consume everything. Even if he was only one man, even if he stood alone, he would fight. Because someone had to, and because somewhere deep inside, he believed that being human meant standing against the dark, no matter the cost. The ruins stretched endlessly, but Joran's mind was far away. Each step through the broken streets carried the same thought. Command must know. If the machines here were truly learning, growing, and spreading, then this planet was not an isolated tragedy. It was a warning of what was coming. Humanity itself could be next. He activated his wristcom when the children were safely hidden in an abandoned tunnel. The screen flickered, static filling the air, then a cold voice came through. "Captain Joran, report." Joran hesitated, then spoke. "The colony is not just destroyed. The machines are active. They are evolving. They are consuming everything," and he stopped for a second, his throat tightening. "There are survivors," static hummed. Then the voice returned, sharp and impatient. "Survivors? Negative. All native life is presumed lost. Confirm mission objective only." Joran clenched his jaw. "I confirm survivors. 4 children. They're alive. I've seen them. They need help." There was silence for a long moment. Then another voice joined, higher ranked, colder. "Captain, you are aware of standing orders." "No contact. This is not humanity's fight." Joran's chest burned. "Not our fight. Machines that eat entire worlds. Does that sound like someone else's problem? If we walk away, they will follow. They will reach us. And by then it will be too late." The voice stayed calm, unshaken. "We cannot risk human lives for alien strays. Extract immediately. Destroy any evidence. We will not commit resources to a dead colony." The words cut deep. Strays. That was how Command saw them. Not children, not survivors, just strays. Joran's fists tightened. He thought of Kale's trembling voice, of the little girl whispering in the night. He thought of the hope he saw in their glowing eyes when he shared his food. They were alive because of him. And now Command wanted him to abandon them. "They're not strays," Joran said, his voice shaking with fury. "They're children. And they're looking at me the way our ancestors once looked at soldiers on Earth, hoping for mercy. Hoping for humanity." The comm stayed silent for a moment. Then the voice turned cold as steel. "Captain Joran, listen carefully. If you defy orders, you will face court-martial. You will be branded a traitor. Do you understand?" Joran closed his eyes, his heartbeat thundering. He understood. He had been a soldier long enough to know what disobedience meant. His career would end. His name would be erased. He might never set foot on Earth again, but he also understood something greater. If he obeyed, the children would die. Their faces would vanish into the dust of history, their voices lost in the ruins, and humanity would lose something too, the part of itself that still remembered compassion. He opened his eyes and spoke with steady defiance. "Then brand me a traitor. I won't leave them." The comm crackled with static, then went dead. Command had cut him off. He was alone now, truly alone, with no support, no backup. Only his rifle, his will, and the 4 fragile lives depending on him. He turned back to the children. They stared at him, wide-eyed, sensing the weight of his choice even if they hadn't heard the words. Kale asked softly, "They won't come, will they?" Joran forced a small smile, though his chest was heavy. "No, it's just us now." The boy's eyes lowered, but he nodded with quiet acceptance. The younger ones pressed closer to him, trusting him completely. That trust struck Joran harder than any battlefield wound. They believed in him more than his own people did. He sat down beside them, his rifle across his lap. For the first time in years, he felt the burden of being more than a soldier. He was a guardian now, and the decision he made tonight could change everything. As the night grew colder, Joran stared at the stars through the cracked ceiling above. Somewhere up there, human ships waited, Somewhere up there, his command already dismissed him as lost. But down here, in the ruins of a dying world, he had found something they had forgotten. The true mission of humanity was not survival at any cost. It was compassion. It was the ability to see life, even in alien eyes, and choose to protect it. He tightened his grip on his rifle, his eyes burning with resolve. The machines would come again. They always did. And when they did, he would fight not just for survival, but for the meaning of humanity itself. His decision was made, and there would be no turning back. The silence did not last. Joran had known it wouldn't. The machines always returned, hunting, sniffing out the last sparks of life in the ruins. When the first metallic click echoed through the tunnels, his chest tightened. The sound was faint at first, like claws tapping against stone, but it grew louder, sharper, closer. The children froze, their glowing eyes wide with fear. Cale clutched his younger sister's hand so tightly her knuckles turned pale. The little ones looked to Joran, their trust absolute, their fear undeniable. "Stay behind me," Joran whispered, raising his rifle. His voice was steady, but his heartbeat hammered like war drums. The tunnel shook with the vibration of approaching machines. Red lights flickered in the distance, eyes glowing through the dust. Their bodies clattered like armor, metal legs scraping against stone. They moved with terrifying grace, spiders of steel, each one taller than a man, each one bristling with weapons. Joran fired first. His rifle spat blue light, a burning streak that cut through the dark. The blast tore into the lead machine, shattering one of its legs. Sparks flew, and the creature screeched in a soundless burst of static. But it didn't fall. It adapted. Even as it limped, its other legs adjusted, balancing, recalculating. "Run!" Joran shouted. The children scrambled into the side tunnels, their small feet slapping against the stone. Joran backed toward them, firing again and again, the recoil rattling his bones. Another machine collapsed in a shower of sparks, but two more crawled over its smoking corpse. The tunnel walls shook as blasts ricocheted off stone. One machine launched a shard of metal from its body, sharp as a spear. It missed Joran's head by inches, embedding itself deep into the wall behind him. "Faster," he barked, shoving the children forward. Cale led them into a narrow crawl space, so tight even Joran had to crouch. The machines clattered behind, their claws scratching stone as they forced themselves in, shrinking, reshaping their frames to fit. "They're changing," Cale cried. Joran cursed under his breath. The boy was right. Every shot, every moment, the machines adapted. The one with the broken leg was already repairing itself, the metal twisting, fusing, rebuilding into something stronger. They burst out into a wider chamber, a collapsed hall where once there had been markets or homes. Now it was rubble and dust. Holes gaped in the ceiling, beams of daylight slicing through. Joran spun, firing into the tunnel mouth. The machines emerged one by one, relentless. His rifle burned hot in his hands, the energy core glowing dangerously. He was running out of power. The children clung to the far wall, trembling. One of the younger boys shouted, pointing. "There, a way out." Joran followed the boy's finger. A crack in the ceiling, sunlight spilling down, away to the surface. But too high, too far. "Climb," he ordered anyway. The children obeyed instantly, clawing at the broken stone, pulling themselves upward. Joran kept firing, covering their retreat. His rifle hummed, then clicked dry, empty. The lead machine lunged at him. Joran swung the rifle like a club, slamming it into the machine's glowing eye. Sparks exploded. The machine screeched, thrashing violently, knocking Joran back into the rubble. His breath tore out of him, pain flaring in his ribs, but he didn't stop. He grabbed a jagged piece of rebar and rammed it upward, piercing the machine's core. The creature convulsed, then collapsed in a smoking heap. Joran staggered to his feet, his vision spinning. Another machine crawled closer, its body already shifting, its claws longer, sharper than before. "Captain," Cale's voice echoed from above. Joran looked up. The children had made it halfway up the wall, clinging to cracks and broken stone. Cale's hand stretched down toward him. "Come," Joran's chest heaved. He glanced back at the advancing machines, then at the children. His choice was already made. He sprinted toward the wall, leaping onto the rubble, climbing with every ounce of strength left in his body. The children reached for him, pulling, helping. The machines shrieked below, claws scraping, eyes glowing red. One fired a shard upward. It sliced across Duran's shoulder, burning fire into his flesh. He gritted his teeth, refusing to scream. He climbed harder, faster. At last he reached the top. Kale and the others hauled him through the crack, and they tumbled together into the open air. The surface stretched before them, a wasteland of ash and steel, ruins burning under the pale sky. But it was open, free, and the machines were still trapped below. For now, Duran lay on the ground, his chest rising and falling like thunder. The children gathered around him, their faces pale but alive. He looked at them, fragile, scared yet unbroken. Survivors. He sat up slowly, blood dripping from his shoulder. His rifle was gone, lost in the tunnel. His strength was fading. But his resolve had never burned brighter. The machines would keep coming. They would never stop, and he would never let them win. The sky above the ruins was a dull gray, heavy with smoke and ash. Duran lay on his back for a long moment, gasping for breath, the wound on his shoulder burning like fire. Around him, the children clung together, their glowing eyes scanning the horizon for danger. The machines had been left behind in the tunnels, but Duran knew it would not last. They would adapt, they would find another path, and they would rise again. He pushed himself up, teeth clenched, and looked at the children. They were alive, but not safe, not yet. His rifle was gone, his strength fading, and the world around them still belonged to the machines. For the first time since he had defied command, doubt whispered in his mind. Maybe I can't save them. Maybe I'm only delaying the end. But then the youngest girl stepped forward. She reached out with her small hand and touched his arm, her eyes wide, shining with fragile hope. You came, she whispered. You stayed. The words struck deeper than any wound. She was right. He had stayed when no one else would, and that alone meant something. Duran forced himself to his feet, scanning the horizon. In the far distance, across the burning plain, a faint shimmer lit the sky. His heart leapt. It was no trick of the light, it was the glow of engines. Ships. Human ships. He raised his wrist comm again, though he knew command had cut him off. Static crackled, but he shouted anyway. This is Captain Duran. I have survivors. Repeat survivors. We need extraction now. The comm hissed with silence. Then faintly a voice broke through. Not cold, not dismissive, urgent. Captain, your signal is weak, but we hear you. Hold your position. Reinforcements inbound. Relief surged through him like fire. But it was not over. The ground trembled beneath them, dust rising in clouds. The machines had found another way up. Their red eyes pierced the smoke as they crawled from the ruins. Dozens of them, their forms shifting, claws gleaming. The children gasped, backing closer to Duran. He stood tall, his fists clenched, his wound forgotten in the heat of the moment. He had no rifle, no heavy weapons, nothing but his will. Yet he planted himself between the machines and the children, refusing to step aside. If you want them, he growled to the advancing swarm, you'll have to go through me. The machines screeched, their voices a chorus of static and metal, and charged. But before they reached him, the sky split open with fire. Human ships roared down, their cannons unleashing streams of light and fury. Explosions tore through the ruins, ripping the machines apart in bursts of sparks and twisted steel. The ground shook as one by one the monsters fell, shredded under the storm of human firepower. The children shielded their eyes, trembling, while Duran stood tall, watching. Reinforcements had come, not because command cared, but because he had forced them to listen. When the smoke cleared, the machines were nothing but broken fragments scattered across the plain. Human soldiers poured from the landing craft, their armor gleaming, their weapons raised. They surrounded Duran, their faces hidden behind helmets. One stepped forward, the officer in charge. Captain Duran, the officer said sharply. You disobeyed orders. You risked everything. Duran straightened, his body aching but his voice strong. I saved them. That's what matters. He gestured to the children who stood close behind him. Look at them. They're alive because I chose to protect them. That's what humanity should mean. The officer was silent. Then slowly he removed his helmet. His face was stern, but his eyes flicked to the children. For the first time, something softened there. They are not human, the officer said carefully. Duran stepped closer, his voice rising with conviction. No, but they are alive. They are children. And in their eyes I saw the one thing that defines us, the ability to hope. If we turn away from that, then we are no better than the machines we fight. The soldiers shifted uneasily. Some lowered their weapons. The officer studied Joran for a long moment, then gave a curt nod. "Bring them aboard." The children gasped softly, their eyes wide. Joran knelt and looked at them, his voice gentle for the first time in days. "You're safe now. They'll take you somewhere the machines can't reach." The youngest girl's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "You are not like the others. You are human." Joran swallowed hard, his throat tight. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "And so are you, in all the ways that matter." The children climbed aboard the ship, holding one another tightly. Joran followed, his body broken but his spirit burning brighter than ever. As the engines roared and the ship lifted into the sky, Joran looked down at the ruins below, smoke, ash, and the scattered remains of machines, a world consumed by darkness, but not completely. Because in that darkness he had chosen to act, and in that choice, humanity had won, not with firepower, not with orders, but with compassion. For in the end, the true weapon of humanity was not steel, not war, but the courage to see life in the eyes of others and protect it.